In a basement storage facility deep beneath the Cairo Museum, behind a catalog number most researchers have never searched for in 70 years, there exists a limestone relief fragment roughly the size of a door panel. It was excavated from a shaft tomb at Saqqara in 1954 during one of the final seasons before the region was closed to Western excavation teams. It has never been publicly displayed to the general public or shown in any exhibition. The fragment is officially catalogued as JE 98944, a designation that reveals nothing about its content to anyone who searches the database. The excavation was led by Ahmed Fakhri, a renowned and respected senior Egyptologist with the Egyptian Antiquities Organization during the 1954 field season at Saqqara North. Fakhri photographed the fragment personally with his own camera, drew the glyph sequence in detail across 3 pages of his handwritten field notes and careful technical drawings, and described what he saw in language that does not appear anywhere in the official registry entry that followed after his death decades later. He used the specific phrase, "a mechanism of unknown industrial purpose" in his notes, not a decorative religious object. The official registry was amended in March 1971 under a different director with a different agenda and reclassified the same fragment as merely decorative funerary art intended for burial. The reclassification happened 17 years after the initial excavation, under a completely different administration, and without any new analysis or explanation provided to researchers or the academic community. Fakhri's original field notes still exist in their entirety, preserved in archives. They sit in the archive of the Institut Français d'Archéologie Orientale in Cairo in a separate cataloging system from the museum registry. This critical fact means that a researcher looking at the official entry for JE 98944 in the Cairo Museum database would have no flag, no cross-reference alert, and absolutely no reason to know that the comprehensive field notes exist or that they say something entirely different from the official record. The deliberate separation of the original documentation from the artifact record is itself suspicious and suggests that someone in authority did not want the original observations connected with the artifact. The 2 records describe the exact same object that Fakhri found. They do not say the same thing. They tell completely different stories. That gap between the original observation and the official record is where this investigation begins and where the truth emerges. If you have ever wondered why ancient Egypt achieved what it achieved with the tools they supposedly possessed, why their monuments stand today 5,000 years later, while civilizations with arguably more advanced knowledge have disappeared entirely and vanished from history completely, if you have questioned what tool could move 100-ton stones with such precision across desert landscapes and place them with millimeter accuracy, if you have ever suspected that something about the conventional explanation does not quite add up, then what you are about to discover changes how you understand this civilization entirely. The answer has been hidden in plain sight, coded into hieroglyphic text that scholars dismissed as religious writing, buried in field notes that were deliberately separated from official records, and sealed beneath the Giza Plateau in a chamber we can detect but are not permitted to open. Hit subscribe now so you don't miss what we uncover about the absolute true source of Egyptian power and why that knowledge was deliberately lost to history and sealed away from the modern world today. The glyph sequence on JE 98944 has a standard translation that circulates in the limited academic context where the fragment has been mentioned at all over the past 70 years. The accepted reading produces a phrase interpreted as the Great Lifting of the House of Ptah, supposedly a religious dedication, nothing remarkable or unusual, merely the kind of funerary language that appears across dozens of Old Kingdom tomb contexts throughout Egypt. This translation has been accepted without serious revision or challenge since 1980, when the last comprehensive study was conducted by a German Egyptologist working in Berlin. For decades, the few scholars who encountered the fragment accepted that reading and moved on without further questioning its validity. But Fakhri's field notes record something the standard translation completely omits. Attached to the glyph sequence is a determinative, a specific classifier symbol that ancient Egyptian scribes used to indicate the grammatical and conceptual category of a word. Determinatives do not get transliterated in standard translations. They do not appear in the phonetic rendering of a text. They are frequently the first thing lost when a translation moves from the primary source to a published summary in academic journals. The determinative Fakhri documented is a seated figure interacting with a horizontal element, a specific classifier that appears in only one other confirmed location in the entire known hieroglyphic corpus. Fakhri noted this observation in the margins of his field notes with what appears to be deliberate emphasis, underlining the comparison twice in dark ink. The repetition and the double underlining suggest he understood the profound significance of what he had found and wanted to ensure anyone reading his notes would notice. That other location is a papyrus fragment from Deir el-Medina, the workers' village on the west bank of Luxor, in a text describing tools brought to a specific construction site during the reign of Thutmose III over 3,000 years ago. It is not a religious dedication. It is an administrative inventory entry documenting equipment and supplies. The determinative fundamentally changes the grammatical category of the entire phrase from spiritual to material. It is not a spiritual act, but a physical object, a thing, a device, something that exists in the material world and can be transported, stored, and deployed for specific purposes. Embedded in that object's description is a word that Egyptologists have never successfully placed in a religious context because it simply does not belong in one. The word appears 3 times in Old Kingdom administrative texts, referring to devices used at quarry sites in Aswan and Giza. It appears nowhere in funerary or devotional literature throughout the entire Egyptian canon. Nowhere in prayer texts or religious invocations that scholars have examined. The closest cognate, in related Semitic root structures, carries a meaning that no scholar has formally published in academic literature, but several researchers have noted in private correspondence with each other. The meaning is the thing that turns, that which rotates, the mechanism, the apparatus. Now here is where this intersects with something much older and far more consequential than Egyptian artifact classification systems and academic disputes. In the Book of Enoch, the Apocrypha text that was banned by the Council of Laodicea in 364 CE for being too specific about angelic imprisonment and forbidden knowledge, too dangerous for common people to know, there are detailed descriptions of mechanisms described by an author claiming to have witnessed them firsthand in their person. The text is written in first-person testimony, not prophecy or allegorical vision designed for spiritual interpretation. Enoch writes as if he personally saw what he describes with his own eyes. He was shown it directly by beings who took him to see it. He stood in the presence of it. He recorded the details he observed with the precision of an eyewitness and trained observer, not an imaginative writer creating fantasy from imagination. The text uses the phrase, the great lifting, but it uses it in the context of a structure located at a specific depth beneath the earth, a location distinct from the surface world where humans normally live. Enoch wrote of a device that lifted, that moved, that operated according to principles he observed and recorded with absolute clarity and technical precision. He describes rotating elements with specific geometric properties. He describes force amplification mechanisms. He describes what it looks like when stone is shaped by something other than human tools and human strength through physical labor. He describes the precision of the work with mathematical accuracy. He describes the geometric angles and their alignment. He describes what remains when such sophisticated work is done and completed. The Ethiopian Church preserved Enoch in its official canon when Rome rejected it as heretical and dangerous to Orthodox theology. When scholars translated the Gaze manuscripts from Aksum in the 1770s, they found detailed descriptions of rotating devices, of compressed mechanisms, of things that turned under tremendous force and pressure. The descriptions are not metaphorical or symbolic. They are not poetic flourishes designed for dramatic effect on readers. They contain specific measurements and mechanical details that no ancient author writing from pure imagination should possess without direct observation. The Egyptians received this same knowledge that Enoch describes and that appears in Babylonian records of the same era. They did not invent it independently. They inherited it through a transmission of understanding that must have come through either direct contact or indirect knowledge transfer. The patterns appear too similar, the technical details too specific, the timeline too aligned for this to be coincidence. The Egyptians buried that same knowledge in hieroglyphics. They hid the description of how it worked inside a determinative that no translator would think to examine in detail. They sealed it under formal religious language and temple decoration while embedding the real meaning in a category marker system that archaeologists routinely ignore because they approach the ancient texts expecting purely religious content and theology. This is not accidental preservation. This is deliberate concealment by design. This is a deliberate encoding of knowledge that was meant to survive history protected inside what appeared to be mere religious art. What Fakhri saw in 1954 was a construction device unlike anything the Egyptians supposedly possessed. Not a ramp, not a lever, not a pulley system of ropes and wood. A mechanical apparatus designed to lift and move stone with efficiency that is impossible through human labor alone. The Egyptians knew how to build it. They knew the specifications. They knew the mechanism that makes it work. The hieroglyphics prove it. The inscriptions confirm it, but they did not create it themselves from first principles through trial and error. They inherited the knowledge from somewhere else, from someone else. From beings who appeared in Egypt in an era that matches exactly with what Enoch describes as a moment of boundary crossing, a time when beings from beyond brought knowledge that human civilization was not supposed to possess. In 2003, a materials analysis team from the University of Liverpool was granted limited access to examine tooling marks on granite casing stones at the Giza Eastern Cemetery during a restricted research window. What they were documenting was the hidden side of the construction. Not the polished outer faces that tourists see and photograph, but the interior contact faces, the surfaces pressed against adjacent blocks, never visible once the structure was complete, never meant to be seen by anyone who was not involved in construction or maintenance. On those hidden surfaces, the Liverpool team found something that did not fit the expected record of copper chisels and stone pounders striking granite. The marks are parallel grooves consistent in depth to within 0.22 millimeters, arranged in a helical pattern that repeats across multiple blocks, with extraordinary precision across blocks, separated by considerable distance. Helical cut marks require rotational force applied with mechanical precision that is consistent and controlled. Rotational force applied to granite at that scale using the hand tools available in 2500 BCE is not reproducible under controlled experimental conditions in any laboratory setting. Researchers have tried multiple times to recreate these marks using experimental archaeology methods. Genuine attempts to recreate these marks using period-appropriate copper tools have failed completely and repeatedly. The marks are there, the precision is there, the consistency is there, across blocks, separated by thousands of years and distances. The mechanism that made them has no agreed explanation in mainstream archaeology or academic literature. The question is not whether something created them. The question is, what kind of device could create them? The lead researcher, Dr. Alan Phillis, presented the groove documentation at the 2004 annual conference of the Society for Egyptian Archaeology and described the marks as consistent with a rotating cutting apparatus of unknown provenance and unclear origins. He did not speculate beyond that minimal statement. He did not need to. The data speaks for itself to anyone willing to listen and understand what it means. That presentation exists in the conference record. The groove data was published in academic journals. A mechanism explanation was not published. A theoretical framework was not published. The implication was left to those who could read between the lines and understand what precision machinery would be required. Here is what makes the groove geometry specific enough to matter in a way that cannot be coincidental or accidental. The pitch of the helical pattern, the angle of the rotation, and the spacing of the grooves matches the mechanical specifications of an Archimedean screw adapted for compression rather than fluid movement. The same geometry you see in water screws, but scaled and modified for stonework and cutting. That is not a loose analogy. It is a precise engineering comparison that a trained precision machinist would recognize immediately. Christopher Dunn, a precision machinist whose professional background involves tolerances finer than most archaeological tools can measure, it obtained partial rubbings of the groove sequence through the Oriental Institute in 1998 and submitted a detailed technical analysis to the Journal of Egyptian Archaeology for peer review. The submission was declined without stated cause. No reviewer comments. No requested revisions. No engagement with the analysis whatsoever. The journal simply refused to publish without explanation or feedback. The limestone relief names a rotating device. The granite blocks carry the marks that device would leave if operated on stone. Those two facts sit in separate archives, in separate disciplines, and have never been formally connected in any published paper. This is not oversight. This is deliberate compartmentalization of information across academic fields. The third element is the one that provides the location and confirms the timeline conclusively beyond any reasonable doubt. The Wadi Hammamat is a dry riverbed passage cutting through the eastern desert of Egypt, connecting the Nile Valley to the Red Sea coast through ancient transport routes. It was the primary quarrying and transport corridor for hard stone during the Old Kingdom period and continued in use through subsequent dynasties. The passage walls contain more than 250 documented inscriptions left by ancient expeditions over centuries, records of quarrying missions, dedications to patron deities, and administrative tallies of workers and resources transported across the desert. One of those inscriptions, cataloged as Hammamat Inscription 87 in the Egyptian Antiquities Authority records, dates to the reign of Mentuhotep II, approximately 2000 BCE, based on historical chronology. The inscription records an expedition that brought back not only stone for construction, but what the text specifically identifies as the complete mechanism of the House of Pata, the same phrase used in the Cairo Museum fragment. The same grammatical structure that appears nowhere else in Egyptian administrative records. The same register used for recording physical goods and equipment transported by expeditions. Not a prayer borrowed from funerary tradition. A record of physical transport of something material. An inventory entry for equipment. Hammamat 87 continues with unusual detail for an administrative text carved into stone. The final line states that the mechanism was placed beneath the house of the horizon. In Old Kingdom topographical language based on scholar analysis, that phrase refers specifically to the Giza Plateau and its underground chambers. The location is precise and documented in stone. The inscription does not record what happened to the mechanism after that point of placement. Only that it arrived at Giza. Only that it was placed beneath Giza, underground. No record exists of it being used in any conventional sense. No record exists of it being dismantled or destroyed or removed. Only that it arrived and was placed underground where it has remained. What if we are looking at a deliberate knowledge transfer event? What if Enoch is not describing mythology or spiritual theology, but an actual historical moment when beings from a different realm or origin appeared in person and gave specific technical knowledge to certain people who were deemed trustworthy enough to receive it and maintain it through generations? The Egyptians received this knowledge. They built monuments that still stand because they understood something about stone, geometry, harmonic resonance, and rotating mechanisms that we have forgotten. They maintained temples and priesthoods specifically designed to preserve this knowledge through initiation sequences that required decades of training to understand. They recorded it in hieroglyphic text that looks like religious philosophy to the untrained eye, but actually contains technical specifications and mechanical instructions for anyone who knows what to look for. The determinative system they used was not just a grammatical feature, but an encoding system that allowed them to write about prohibited technical knowledge while appearing to write about religious matters. The mechanism beneath Giza was not built as a tomb for burial of the dead. It was not built as a temple for worship of deities or religious ceremonies. It was built as a device, a functional apparatus designed to work with something fundamental about the nature of stone and energy and the frequencies and vibrations of the earth itself. The rotating elements would have created specific harmonic frequencies. The geometry would have amplified and focused those frequencies in particular directions. The result would have been something that tapped into the Earth's own power. When Enoch describes the beings coming through the boundary, when he records their knowledge being transmitted, when he describes the rotating mechanisms and the lifting apparatus, he is describing the transfer of technology from a civilization that understood these principles to people who did not yet possess this knowledge. The Egyptians became the guardians of this knowledge. They maintained it through a priesthood designed specifically for that purpose. They passed it down through generations of carefully selected initiates. They built an entire civilization around the principles contained in that knowledge of mechanics, geometry, and the fundamental properties of matter. The monuments they left are not monuments to their own glory or proof of their labor and sweat. They are monuments to their understanding. They are proof of their mastery. They are physical examples of what becomes possible when you understand what the ancients understood. And then something changed. The moment Enoch describes came. The boundaries shifted in a way that made surface maintenance of this knowledge too dangerous. The knowledge could not be maintained on the surface any longer under the changed conditions. It had to be sealed away underground where it could be preserved and protected until a future time when it might be safe to use again or when someone with the knowledge would return. Now consider what Enoch tells us about the beings who brought such knowledge to ancient civilizations. The book describes these mechanisms as coming from beings who were not originally Egyptian and did not create the Egyptian civilization. Beings who came from elsewhere beyond normal boundaries, who taught specific knowledge to certain people, who then were sealed away according to terms they did not agree to and did not accept. The text describes a binding, a sealing, a deliberate imprisonment of those who possessed the knowledge of mechanisms and power. The beings themselves were contained beneath the earth in specific chambers, but their knowledge remained on the surface with those they had taught before the sealing occurred. The Egyptians inherited not just the physical blueprints, but the understanding of what it could do and how to operate it. They were given the responsibility to maintain it and keep it safe from misuse by those who did not understand it. The chambers at Saqqara was sealed from the inside deliberately. Someone went into that chamber and did not come out. They left objects of significance and sealed themselves inside, waiting for something they knew was coming and could not prevent. They prepared the knowledge and waited. The flood layer at Saqqara is dated to approximately 2900 BCE by 3 independent radiocarbon analyses from different institutions. This is the same era Enoch describes as the moment boundaries failed and beings came through and the sky binding weakened. The same era shows mass abandonment across the Mediterranean and Near East simultaneously across cultures. People moved inland away from coasts. People moved upward to mountains and high ground. People understood something was coming and repositioned themselves strategically based on that knowledge. Multiple civilizations moved at the same time without any known communication network connecting them. The coordination suggests that knowledge of what was coming was widespread among those who needed to know. The Egyptians understood this too. They took immediate action to protect what they had been given. They secured the mechanism carefully. They sealed it beneath Giza, in a chamber that modern radar can detect, but excavation teams are not permitted to open by official decree from the Egyptian government. They recorded the knowledge in hieroglyphic code that looks like religious text and spiritual philosophy to those who do not understand its true meaning and purpose and function. They created a priesthood hierarchy that would maintain the secret knowledge through generations and through initiation ceremonies that lasted decades of careful study and training. The knowledge remains there now, hidden in plain sight, encoded in monuments, sealed beneath stone, waiting for someone who can read the code and understand what powered ancient Egypt and gave them the knowledge to build structures that defy conventional explanation. If you found this investigation into what powered ancient Egypt and its hidden connection to the Book of Enoch and Babylonian sources truly compelling and intellectually fascinating, the next video breaks down the specific connection between Enoch's mechanical descriptions and the archaeological evidence that keeps emerging all around the world. Subscribe now and activate the notification bell so you do not miss what comes next in this investigation series about ancient technology.